Hi, friends. 1 year ago, the gentleman I'm about to introduce you to recommended this book, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease by Caldwell Esselstyn, to me. I was interested in it because 12 years ago I had a near heart attack. That book and the documentaries Forks Over Knives and What the Health on Netflix motivated me to go vegan and to stop cooking with oil. And the results have been staggering. Nagging aches and pains went away, and at age 61, my body is more open and feels looser than it did when I was 40. So this is an important conversation today, and one I particularly want you to watch. In it, you'll learn how you can leave a lasting imprint on your family's lives and the lives of your employees for generations by showing leadership in the area of health. You'll learn some unforgettable truths that will change your life forever. So with that, I want to introduce you to Dr. Neil Cooper of Atlanta, Georgia. Good morning, Neil.
Good morning, Robert, and thank you so much for having this conversation today. I think this is going to be a lot of fun and hopefully educational.
It's an important conversation. So let's start with this, Neil. Tell us where you went to college and med school and where you got your training, if you would.
Sure. First, I just want to tell you, Robert, that how exciting and inspirational you are to have modified your lifestyle, particularly your diet, and the results that you are getting are fantastic. You inspire me, and I know you inspire people that are around you. So I just want to say congratulations. And by the way, I've heard that story from a lot of different people. When they make those big changes, they do feel better and more loose and have more energy, just like you do. So congratulations to you, and thank you for recognizing that. So in terms of my training, Robert, I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, went to medical school at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, then did most of my training at Baylor Medical Center down in Houston, followed by an interventional radiology fellowship at Vanderbilt Medical Center in Nashville. So after I finished that, I went directly to Atlanta and joined a private practice at Piedmont Hospital. And my practice mainly was around interventional radiology, which a lot of us don't really know what that is. And we perform interventional procedures on patients, but we use radiology guidance and therefore the radiology part of it. So we'll use fluoroscopy or cath lab to put catheters in people's arteries and veins. We'll use ultrasound and CT and MRI guidance when we need to do biopsies and other different procedures. So I've spent a lot of time putting balloons in people's arteries and opening up their blocked arteries from atherosclerosis.
Okay, great. Well, you've gone beyond interventive radiology and become certified in lifestyle medicine. What is the genesis of the lifestyle medicine certification? What is that all about?
In 2012, as you know, I had a heart attack. And at that point, I read the same book that you read, Caldwell Esselstyn's book on preventing and reversing heart disease. It took me a little bit longer than it did you to really understand and grasp the meaning of this. So I attended a lot of different medical meetings that were primarily on lifestyle medicine modifications, lifestyle modification, and particularly heavy on plant-based whole food way of eating and getting rid of the inflammatory foods that a lot of us really didn't know about. So the genesis of lifestyle medicine is helping physicians and all allied healthcare members to understand that we're not treating the root cause of disease until we really get down to the basics, and that is lifestyle. It's our lifestyle choices. That's the biggest determinant of our health. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine understood that mainstream medicine is not treating the root cause of most diseases. So about 12 or 13 years ago, they formed a separate organization, part of American medicine. It's part of Western medicine, and it's called the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. They started giving certification examinations a couple years ago, and because of my interest in health and well-being, I became certified a couple years ago.
Okay, so what does that mean? What is first of all, what is lifestyle medicine, and what do lifestyle medicine certified doctors or practitioners do with that?
No, all right, that's a great question. Let's talk about traditional medicine right now, how it's evolved in our society. If we have a health issue, we go to our physician. He takes a history, a physical, does a bunch of tests, and then says, Neil, Robert, you have X, Y, and Z, and we can treat that by giving you this prescription. And if that doesn't work, we can provide a particular surgery or procedure on you that might help it. But we know that that's really putting a Band-Aid. And when I was treating a lot of people with blockages to their legs and putting catheters down there, I could take care of the acute problem by opening up the artery and save them from having surgery. And then I would just simply tell them, don't smoke and walk more. And nowhere in my medical education, or even in my continuing medical education, was there any information about, had I talked to my patient and spent more time talking about a better diet, better sleep,
Exercise.
if we had talked about all of that, that really gets to the root cause of the inflammatory process that's taking place in our patients' bodies.
When I read this book, I remember one page where he described the endothelium, the inner lining of the arteries, and
Right.
said that the endothelium manufactures nitric oxide,
Yeah.
which is like Teflon for the blood to flow through.
Yes.
So inflammation, he says, causes that a reduction in the nitric oxide, and I guess inflammation of the artery walls, and it makes the blood stickier as it goes through and creates more plaque. Is that kind of...
Robert, you could be a cardiologist. That's excellent. That's a great review. That's exactly what happens. So it does take cholesterol to start the buildup in the arteries, but it's not the cholesterol alone that's going to cause the eventual blockage that causes heart attacks or to come in with a pulseless leg or something like that. It does take the inflammatory component, and there's a lot of different chemical reactions and that occur, but certainly the elasticity of the artery itself becomes significantly decreased, and that has a lot to do with the nitric oxide and other molecules. And so when we get rid of the fats that you're talking about, particularly the saturated fats or the other highly processed inflammatory foods, and it turns out that a lot of these animal products are components of the inflammatory process that we never really realized. So you're absolutely right in the way you described.
Right. And one, so when he talks about, when Esselstyn talks about fat, he really, and by the way, I remember him saying that people ask him, well, isn't going vegan and cooking without oil radical? And he said, well, radical is cutting open someone's chest and sewing a vein into their heart.
Right.
That's pretty radical.
Right.
So yeah, all the pharmaceutical and all the procedures are radical compared to just eating healthy and exercising. But what is it that, why is it that pop culture believes that avocado oil is good, olive oil is good, any oil is,
coconut oil,
good oils, there's bad oils, that, keto diets are okay, and paleo and all of this? How does that all square with what Esselstyn says, about fat is just bad, and that if you reduce fat, you reduce inflammation?
So let's remember one thing, is that Caldwell Esselstyn was working with a group of patients that were at their very end stage, end of life, with very severe heart disease, coronary artery disease, and there was absolutely nothing else that modern medicine could do for them. They'd already had all their bypass procedures, their balloon angioplasties, and they still couldn't walk to the mailbox, right, to get their mail. So there is no question that the science shows that a lot of the fatty acids that we take, whether it's monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, and particularly saturated, can contribute to the inflammation. And so let's face it, there's varying degrees that we can take our health and what we do. So any little change that we make is going to help us get healthier. If we move from a hamburger to a plant-based burger, that alone is helping. Now, if a person has severe disease, and then absolutely we want to steer clear of the fats. And the problem is in our society, and you know this, is that there's so much marketing, there's so much money involved that confusion in the marketplace, confusion actually helps companies promote products that don't really have good science behind them, and that's just the truth. So, you know, if someone just wants to improve their health in general, they don't have any genetic background with heart disease, then, you know, I would say, okay, if you want to have a little bit of avocado, you want to have some walnuts, you want to have a little fat, that's fine. But, you know, it's all a degree of how far we need to take this.
And what does fat do? I understand that it inflames, let's say, the endothelium, but he said that fat, when the fat enters the body, the cells of the body don't like it. It's almost like a bacterial infection. The autoimmune system attacks the bacteria. Well, the cells of the body attack fat, which meant to me that inflammation would be everywhere. If fat inflames cells and cells are everywhere, then the body is inflamed. Is that accurate? Is that true?
Well, I mean, that's an accurate statement. It's what we've learned in the past decade or so is that the fat around our organs is actually hormonally active. A lot of us used to think it was just there to protect the organs, but they produce hormones and molecules from the fat cells that, yes, can do some good things and some bad things. Listen, our body wants to store fat because our cells, they don't know that tomorrow we could be in a famine. So our body is very efficient at storing fat, but excess amounts of fats, and particularly saturated fat, we know does promote inflammation. But I do want
between saturated mono. I've never really mastered those different fats. What is the difference?
Well, all fat is made up of fatty acids combined with a glycerol backbone. And it depends really upon the amount of hydrogen that's tied into the molecules, whether it's saturated or unsaturated or polyunsaturated. So they're all related, but it's just a difference in the molecular structure.
But like saturated with what?
Hydrogen.
With hydrogen.
Yeah. And electrons and hydrogen mainly, and a few other different molecules that are connected to it. You know, saturated fat not only is inflammation in our blood vessels, but people think that type 2 diabetes is caused by too much sugar. It's not the sugar, and it's not the carbohydrate, but the saturated fat clogs up our cells, particularly our muscle cells and our liver cells, and then doesn't allow the insulin to get the sugar into the cells, and therefore we get high glucose levels. So the saturated fat plays havoc on our body, not just in our arteries, but in other organs as well.
Right, and Esselstyn said that it's not just heart disease that fat consumption affects, and the Western diet. He said it's diabetes and cancer and a lot of chronic diseases that people are living with and taking meds for and getting procedures for that stem from the Western diet.
Well, that's what's so great about this. And you'll hear Esselstyn talk about this. Dr. Dean Ornish says this a lot, that what's great about this whole food, plant-based way of eating is that it's one diet can help those people that have certain types of cancer, those people that have high blood pressure, those people that might be prone to a stroke. So it's one diet takes care of all these inflammatory conditions. And it turns out that 80% of our healthcare dollar, 80% of a doctor's visit is on these chronic lifestyle diseases that are induced by inflammation. And it depends on your genetic makeup. If you and I have genes that get turned on by inflammation that are going to cause hardening of the arteries and closure, other people may not have those particular genes, or they're protected, but they might have genes, oncologic genes, cancer genes, that could be turned on by this inflammation that is being caused. And I just want to make one more statement. It's not just the fat in our diet that's causing the inflammation. There's just a host of dozens and dozens and dozens of molecules that we've identified that our body, when our body takes in meats and dairy and eggs and animal products, there are so many metabolic products. Yes, fat is a big part of it, but there are other molecules that are created by animal products that then get absorbed and they cause a low-grade chronic inflammation. And so if you have a steak once in a while, that's fine. Our body will repair the inflammation. It's when we eat this day in and day out, 3 times a day, 5 times a day, these inflammatory products. That's what's causing all these issues.
What I found interesting in Forks Over Knives and What the Health was that they followed the money behind what the media presents, whether it's advertisements or just general stories that you read or see on TV. The avocado councils, touting avocado consumption, and so that was an awareness, a big awareness, that the money behind the Western diet serves to enrich different people in different industries.
Well, you're absolutely right, and it's very interesting. This summer, I had the opportunity to present to the Scientific Advisory Council at the USDA. They're putting together their next dietary guidelines that they do every 5 years, and they give an opportunity for the public to come and speak. And so half of the audience that came to speak in front of the council were paid from the different various food organizations. And then half the people there were other people that were promoting more of just a whole food, plant-based way of eating, and asking the scientific council to please make sure that we incorporate more of that. But you could hear one speaker, tell all the good reasons that we should be eating meat, and the very next speaker says, here's all the reasons we shouldn't. So there is huge confusion in the marketplace. There's no question. There's a lot of money. There's no bad company, and I'm not casting aspersions on any company. It's, as you know, as a CFO, that our job as a company CEO is to make money. That's fine. But what I have to be very careful of, and when I make recommendations to patients or friends or family, I want to make sure those recommendations are coming from evidence-based exams that did not have big money behind them. And so we had, in the scientific community, it's a big deal right now, making sure that we're looking at studies that are the least biased as possible, with the best evidence as possible, without marketing money, behind it. And
Right.
That's something that we all have to be very careful about.
Right. I didn't realize that, but a lot of the studies are funded by various enterprises whose interest is in having an outcome that supports people buying their products.
Absolutely. And when that study comes out, there'll be 1 or 2 lines in that study that the news media then picks up. So
Yeah.
butter is back, or fat is good for you. They'll pick up 1 or 2 sentences from these biased studies, put it on the news because it makes good news. Who doesn't want to hear that we can have butter again? I mean, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
So what we have to be careful of is that we want to make sure that there's the preponderance of evidence in any kind of study that over and over again we keep hearing. And it's boring. Who's going to report that broccoli is good for you? We don't want to hear that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's turn to lifestyle medicine. What is the lifestyle medicine movement? What does lifestyle medicine address? And if you are now certified in lifestyle medicine, so that prepares you to do what? To have a separate practice, to add on to a medical practice? What about the lifestyle medicine and movement?
Yeah, that's a great question. Great question. What is this lifestyle medicine movement, and how does it fit into traditional medicine? And is this some sort of crazy alternative medicine, which it's not? So the goal of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which I said started about 12, 13 years ago, is that they'll be irrelevant in the future. And that their vision is that every healthcare worker, every allied healthcare worker, every physician, every nurse, every nutritionist will be knowledgeable and or maybe even certified by a body that can help educate us about lifestyle modifications and how that decreases our risk for chronic diseases. So the hope is someday is that every standard medical practice will incorporate lifestyle medicine. As we've stated, traditional medicine is coming and getting a prescription or getting a procedure. Any specialist, any primary care physician today can incorporate lifestyle medicine into their practice. If you go to your ENT doctor, your surgeon, your primary care physician, all of them are capable of and should be talking to you about lifestyle modification as it relates to their particular problem and their particular specialty. However, in traditional medicine, the problem is that we don't have the resources then to help patients and coach them, educate them, and to follow them for these lifestyle modifications, which are not always easy to do. So the difference is if somebody is practicing lifestyle medicine either separately as a separate subspecialty or as a part of their routine medical practice, those particular practices will also incorporate the coaches, the nutritionists, the exercise physiologists, the behavioral health specialists. They'll have those either on staff or available for consultation. And the doctor will say, I want you to meet with my nutritionist. And in 6 weeks after you've worked with them, who will give you the practical knowledge of what to do and how to do this, come back to me in 6 weeks and then we'll see where you're at. And maybe we make some more modification at that point. There are lifestyle medicine practices that are out there now. They're not very common, but they are basically run by primary care physicians. And if you come to your primary care, the first line of treatment will be a discussion about your diet, your stress, your exercise, all the lifestyle strategies that need to be incorporated. So we're seeing more and more specific lifestyle medicine, but the day is going to come where we all, no matter what our specialty is, we should just be practicing smart, logical lifestyle modification as a first line approach rather than jumping right to the prescription pad.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So the 6 elements of lifestyle medicine are what?
So it's common sense. And if you ask anybody on the street what determines their health, they're going to tell you the same thing. So number 1 is good nutrition. Let's get rid of the inflammatory foods and let's get some better nutrition. Number 2 is staying active. Now, exercise is a part of activity, but it's not the whole story. Exercise is very good for our neuromusculoskeletal system, but just being active all day long is something that we need to help folks incorporate. You can exercise an hour in the morning, and then if you sit at your desk for 8 hours and come home and sit in front of the TV, that exercise hasn't really done you a whole lot of good. So activity is another component, another strategy. Number 3 is stress management. We all have stress in our lives. A certain amount of stress is actually healthy for us. It bumps up our immune system. So when you exercise for an hour, you're inducing stress in your body, but the body comes back stronger after recovery. And the same thing with emotional stress. A little bit is fine, but there are management ways that's out in the public that the people know about that we can help them learn more about meditation and mindfulness and Tai Chi and things like that. There's the avoidance of risky substances. So we would want to talk about smoking. We'd want to talk about alcohol. We want to talk about marijuana. We want to talk about any of those drugs. And then finally, there is the subject of behavioral health, a positive psychology, sort of a staying connected. And we know that that's a big component of health as well. Being active in a community or volunteering, whether it's religious or not religious, whatever it is, staying connected is big. And if you've read, Robert, the Blue Zones, and if any of your subscribers have read the Blue Zones, staying connected is a big part of it, because these people that go into older age, they feel like they're necessary, they're doing something, and that's a big part. So one thing is that when we start to talk about lifestyle, I don't try to get someone to make all these changes at once. Usually we start, but not necessarily with nutrition, because that's something that we do 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day, and it probably plays one of the biggest roles. So we would start with nutrition. We would meet the patient where they're at. We would decide as a shared decision making on how far we can go with this. Some people will go all the way. I think you did. You just decided on Monday you'll make the change, and there you go.
Yep.
Other people want to start with meatless Mondays, and that's fine. Let's give it a try. But what's interesting is that when we make the change in our eating habits, it really rolls over into the other components, the other strategies. So if a person's been walking a little bit but changes their way of eating to a more anti-inflammatory, then all of a sudden they begin extending their walks. They take the dog for another 15 minutes. And oh, by the way, my sleep actually got better. So I'm not really even necessarily looking at my sleep, but my snoring has gone away. I sleep better at night. So starting with the diet really kind of ripples into some of these other strategies that we just talked about.
Okay, so if somebody is not sleeping well, either they have a lot on their mind and something acute is coming up, they're moving, or they're the marriage isn't good or whatever. So sleep problems could be solved by what? Psychotherapy and sleep therapy, or
Yes. So there's an entire science based on proper sleep hygiene. Now, in a lifestyle medicine practice, no matter who you're seeing, they will help you begin thinking about some of the very basics, some of the easy things to take care of. It's a lot of light therapy. It's a lot of let's don't eat this particular food, a lot of carbohydrates or caffeine. Maybe you don't exercise late at night. There are some real basic things. But if a person continues to have real sleep issues, which a lot of our population does, then we would usually consult with a sleep medicine specialist who can do more separate studies and really get deeper into some of the medications and things that could be used.
So lifestyle medicine is elevating the nutritionists, the sleep management doctors, certainly psychotherapy, the trainer, the physical trainers, maybe cessation coaches or
yes,
I don't know.
Yes.
But basically they're elevating these lifestyle practitioners and looking to downplay or decrease the role of medical doctors prescribing procedures and pharmaceuticals.
You're 100% correct in what you say. There's a white coat effect. So if a person walks into the office and is ready to make some change, they like to hear it from the physician. If the physician says, yes, this is a good idea, and yes, I think we can help you. But then the physician becomes sort of an observer, a coach, and the patient then takes over their own care. But it absolutely elevates the need for the entire team to help patients make those changes. And again, I'll tell you that these changes are not easy. You know that. I mean, this is not an easy thing to do. So people that are motivated need help and need coaches and need people to follow them. And the doctors don't have the time to do all that.
So what I noticed when I went vegan and stopped cooking with oil is in about a few weeks of not eating meat, chicken, fish, and learning to just throw a bunch of mushrooms in a pan and sauteing them, and I put them in the fridge and then they're there. And I take veggies like zucchini and squash and broccoli and whatever, spinach, throw it in a pan, saute it with a tablespoon of water and then salt, pepper. Now I've got a ton of vegetables in the fridge, which I can throw into a tomato sauce. I can put on top of rice. I can make a wrap. It became very easy. And within a couple of weeks, I no longer wanted to eat any of those things that I used to love. and now it's a year later, and I don't crave a hamburger or chicken, or once in a while I want a slice of pizza, but um, and I do cheat. Okay, I'm not perfect.
Right.
I do. I'm a flexible vegan. You know,
Perfect.
90% of the time I'm good. Um, so it was interesting that just that lifestyle change made it easy to forget about and not want the stuff that I was previously, craving.
Well, you're absolutely right. First of all, what you did when you got rid of the heavy animal products and started taking all those vegetables and cooking the way you did and low fat, it's like taking a massive dose of Motrin, but in a much better, healthier way.
Uh-huh.
You just blanketed your body with these antioxidant chemicals and anti-inflammatory chemicals that it doesn't take long for that to take effect in your body. That's what's amazing. We've seen people make, just like you, within 2 weeks, get rid of some of their diabetic medications. Their arthritis gets better. It doesn't really take a whole long time to feel so much better. And there's a chemical physiologic reason, and you're living proof of it.
It's amazing. It really was almost within a couple of weeks. I had tendonitis in my forearms from working out and my knee for years, and they all went away. Amazing, and it was
Amazing.
quick. Um,
Robert, I've seen patients that had psoriasis on maximal medical therapy, and within 2 weeks of a whole food plant-based diet, for the first time in their life, their psoriasis was gone. I've seen people with multiple sclerosis within a month of taking a whole food plant-based diet, their plaques in their brain MRI are gone, and it's so on and so forth. It's just like you said. We had a patient that their type 2 diabetes went away, and unfortunately, their endocrinologist, who did not understand what was going on, said, "You better get off this diet because this is not working. I can't regulate your blood sugars anymore. I'm going to make you too low of blood sugar. You got to stop this diet." That's the exact opposite, because it was so quickly helped them in getting rid of their type 2 diabetes. Their doctor didn't even know what to do with it. So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
It is. It's tremendous. So what do you say to people who don't advocate for plant-based eating, or they say, they make points that's something they read or something they viewed,
Sure.
like the keto diet a lot of people are on? What do you say to them?
Well, I've had the opportunity to speak different lay organizations and different medical organizations, which is always fun. And I say this tongue in cheek, but sometimes, Robert, I'd rather talk about politics and religion rather than food, because food is such a touchy subject. It is so emotional. We celebrate with food. It takes us back to our childhood. There's comfort foods. And it's a, very, very socio-emotional subject. So, I can only lay out what information that I believe to be true based on evidence-based science. And, those people that are interested and motivated, they're in the contemplative stage or beyond, and they want to talk more about it. Those are the people that I'm more than happy to sit down with, and let's discuss this, and let's try and do something. But I also recognize that there are many people, myself included, before 2012, that really don't want to hear about this and don't believe it and don't think it's true, because, listen, I know, from the commercials that I can only get strong bones if I drink cow's milk. So, there's a very heavy influence. It's ethnic, it's familial, it's socioeconomic. There's such a heavy influence. So all I can say is that, I hope it works for you. And if it works for you, that's fantastic. We get so many of these diets. The keto diet is huge right now. And it depends on what your goal is, Robert. If your goal is to lose weight, and I want to see some rapid weight loss, believe it or not, a high-fat keto diet will help you lose weight. But so will an M&M diet. I can help you lose weight with just Coca-Cola and M&Ms. That's true. But the question is, what is the long-term health benefits that this provides? And that's where all of these different fast weight loss, caveman diet, paleo diets, that's where they all fall down, is that after decades of eating this way, a high-fat diet, the ketogenic diet, I mean, it's the health benefits. In fact, we're just now starting to get some longer-term studies that are coming out and showing just what we know is going to happen. These folks have terrible chronic diseases that you would expect. It's no surprise. And you know, a lot of when the science that you will read about a keto diet or a paleo diet or whatever other diet it is, it's based on a 12-week study that were done with 25 volunteers, and the keto group lost more weight than the other group, and their cholesterol went down, and therefore this was a very good diet for you. Well, you know, ask yourself, what is the long-term effects? So it's tough. This is an up-road battle, and I'm happy to talk with anybody that wants to talk about it, is ready to be motivated, but there's plenty of people that really have no interest.
Now, what is the long-term benefit? So if somebody modifies their behavior, they follow a plant-based whole food diet, they exercise, they manage stress and so forth. What is there evidence that they will live longer, that the quality of their life, their movement day to day, their mind, their Alzheimer's will be delayed or avoided entirely? What is the evidence that would tilt the scales towards the lifestyle modification?
Right. So Robert, every condition you just mentioned, whether it's my Alzheimer's or whatever it is, there are studies that have been out there for decades and decades that the preponderance of evidence keeps showing us over and over again that these chronic diseases that we thought were just due to normal aging really are not due to normal aging. It's an inflammatory process that we can reverse, and we're not destined to our genes. We are if we keep turning them on, but we can actually turn off many of these disease-producing genes by eating a less inflammatory diet, and that we have proof of. So, I mean, honestly, we could sit here for the next entire 3 days and go over all the different studies that have been produced. One of the great studies, since we're interested in heart disease, was by Dean Ornish many years ago. He did the lifestyle heart trial, and he showed at the end of 5 years he had half of his patients on a whole food plant-based diet and other modifications. The other half of the patients did exactly what their doctors told them to do, which was, eat more fish and try to get more exercise and all these standard, type of treatments for people that had heart disease. And at the end of 5 years, he looked at their coronary arteries, and he found in the whole food plant-based group, at the end of 5 years, they actually reversed the narrowings in their arteries. It doesn't sound like a lot, but by 8%, that is a lot. In the group that continued to do exactly what their doctors had told them to do, those that were on statins, they became more narrow by 27%. And those that were not on statins and still followed what their doctors said, they increased their narrowing by 47%. That's after 5 years. So there's just study after study that looks at different types of cancers. We know that animal protein turns on cancer genes. T. Colin Campbell was one of the first researchers in his Forks Over Knives documentary and the China study, where he could turn on cancer genes by feeding animal protein and then turn off the cancer gene by taking away the animal protein. There are huge epidemiological studies. There are ongoing studies. There's a great study out of Loma Linda where the Seventh-day Health Adventists, they have shown that some of the Seventh-day Adventists, this study has shown that every one of those groups that moves more and more toward a plant-based diet. So some might just eat fish, some eat no animal products, some eat some meat. And they've looked very carefully, and they've shown that there's a decrease in risk factors and decreased mortality every time you make one change, going from meat eating to just fish eating, and from fish eating to just egg eating, and from egg eating on down to no animal products. Each of those steps has demonstrated improved health benefits. So there are tremendous studies out there that just go over this. And you know what? If a study comes out tomorrow and says asparagus can cure cancer, I'm not going to recommend asparagus. But if another study then came out 6 months later out of Europe that said, oh, we think asparagus might be helping in cancer, and then another study comes out of San Francisco that says on and on and on, once we get the preponderance of evidence, then it becomes easy to be able to advise patients and friends on how to change their lifestyle.
And that's what lifestyle medicine is based on, evidence-based medicine. So the preponderance of studies that are not
Correct.
paid for by special interest groups.
Correct. That's what you want to see. That's what you want to see.
Evidence.
That's right. That's exactly right.
A few years ago, I was out with a doctor, and I had heard or read or watched something about how animals are farmed and raised. And I asked her, if an animal is stressed and their cortisol goes up and we eat that, does that cortisol, which is the fight or flight hormone or whatever, does that then get into our body, cause our body to work hard to fight something that isn't really present? What do you think about that?
I think you're definitely onto to the right track. So anything the animal eats and experiences is going to get stored in their fat. And animals have a lot of saturated fat, and then we eat that. So whether it is the cortisone, the cortisol, whether it's other inflammatory molecules, or whether it's the hormones that we're taking in or the antibiotics, all of that contributes to our health epidemic right now. So yes, if an animal is stressed, we're actually going to eat whatever hormones that they're producing that then cause inflammation in us, and that's all part of the low-level inflammation that we're talking about. So yeah, there's a big part of that.
Right. All right, Neil. Where is the starting point for a CEO who wants to improve their health and the health of their employees and make their workforce and their company a wellness company? Where do they start?
That's a great question, Robert. And first of all, all of us know that we're spending way too much money on healthcare. The government spends too much, and every one of your companies that you're speaking with spend too much on healthcare.
Yeah.
So the most important thing for any size company is to let leadership, let the CEO understand what is chronic disease. And chronic disease is the same thing as lifestyle disease. And understand and look at the claims that their employees are making through HR, and look at it and find out that 80% of those claims are all lifestyle chronic diseases. And so once leadership understands what chronic disease is, what it's caused by, it's our lifestyle, then it becomes so much easier to figure out ways to make or help the employees, the workforce, understand what's causing their issues, and maybe help provide information, education, and some fun programming that the employees can become involved in and get their heads wrapped around it. So it all starts in the C-suite. It starts with the CEO understanding that this is what's causing chronic disease, and if we could just make some tweaks to our lifestyle, perhaps we could cut down the amount of chronic disease. We could have happier, more engaged employees. There's less absenteeism or less presenteeism, and so less claims, and that's a great goal.
Yeah, because healthcare is probably one of the top 3 or 4 costs for employers. One of the labor-related costs, and I have found that there is a happiness factor in knowing that what goes in your mouth is good for you. And then, of course, if you combine that with exercise and you're walking around pain-free, there's a happiness, you're elevated and you feel good, and there's an emotional high that comes with that. So what are some ideas that a company can do for their employees to create awareness and to make it fun, and all of a sudden turn people on to plant-based eating and, you know, exercise and so forth, especially the eating? You know, one thing comes to mind. I mean, I had a nutritionist come to my home and go to a grocery store with me, and he
Mm,
showed me, this is bad, get rid of
beautiful.
this, don't buy this, buy this is fine, blah, blah, blah. Um, you know, certainly bringing in a chef that can make delicious plant-based meals, or go to a plant-based restaurant where you know you're going to eat well, and turn people on to that. This stuff is delicious, and it's not, you know, like just eating plain lettuce. Uh, but what are some of the things that you think a company can do for their?
Robert, you're the spokesperson for lifestyle modification. It's fantastic to hear what you're saying. And, you know, so once the C-suite really becomes understanding and then committed to some wellness programs directly related to chronic diseases, I agree with you. I think that, you know, the three things that you think about in a wellness department would be the nutrition, the amount of activity a person gets, and then the emotional support that they get. And there's other factors, financial and this and that, but those are the three top. So I would start with nutrition, and a company can get as creative as they want or as least as they want. They can spend as much time and money that they want or not. But the ideas that you came up with is just bringing in a chef one afternoon, maybe give a little demonstration and to make some healthy dishes. That would be a great start. Or saying, you know, next Monday night's board meeting, we're going to bring in some delicious, you know, tofu stir fry, something like that. That's a nice, easy way to start.
Yeah.
But if you want to get a little bit upgraded from that, then a fun thing to do is something called a 21-day plant power challenge. 21-day plant power challenge. So in the beginning, you get whatever employees are interested, you get them together in a room a couple of weeks before the challenge starts, and you provide them with a nice plant-based meal prepared by a local chef. And then you talk to them. You can bring in local physicians or nutritionists or people from Whole Foods or whatever, and have them talk to the group about the what, the how, and the why of what we're going to do. People get jazzed, and you tell them, go home, clean out your pantry, and on Monday, 2 weeks from now, we're going to start this challenge. And then whoever's running the challenge, the wellness officer or whoever's in charge of this, can help send out daily emails for the next 21 days. You can encourage employees to get together and discuss what they're eating, what their challenges are. You can bring in some food for breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever it is. And then at the end of the 21-day challenge, the most important part of this is having a debrief session. And you let everybody come in. Again, you provide a little meal, and you let everybody tell their story. And you go around the room, and you will be shocked at the emotion that comes out when people realize how much better they feel. Just like you've been saying during our interview here, how much better you feel. And just in 21 days, people have that reaction. And it's very powerful. Now, if a company wants to bring in a health fair type program where they measure the biometrics ahead of the challenge, do a finger stick, look at their glucose levels, look at their lipid levels, and then do the same thing after the 21-day challenge, then people have something that they can actually hold on to, a piece of paper. And again, you'll be shocked, they will be shocked at how their cholesterol drops and their triglycerides drop and their sugar drops just in 21 days. And that's so self-sustaining. And then other employees will hear about this and say, well, I want to do this next time. It sounds fantastic. So people actually begin demanding a program like this. This is just one idea.
Okay, so we've touched on a lot of subjects, and like you said earlier, it's not an all or none proposition. You don't have to do all 6 of these things perfectly from the beginning. You can start with meatless Mondays. You can start with going plant-based for 21 days. You could, whatever. You can do exercise 1 day a week, then turn on to 2 days. You can evolve.
Yes.
And so the main point is that 80% of healthcare spend is treating chronic disease, and which comes from our lifestyle, our diet and our lifestyle. And we just need to make a few disciplined choices and have the discipline, and then our health will improve and our healthcare spend will go down. In fact, I believe it was in the book, that Esselstyn said that if everybody ate plant-based, that our healthcare spend would drop 80%.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great news for a company, because if in fact they were able to, this whole movement of lifestyle medicine and lifestyle choices was able to reduce the overall healthcare spend, it would save companies and employees a ton of money. Neil, thank you so much for informing us and inspiring us to get healthier. If you want to reach Neil, it's Neil Cooper, Atlanta, Georgia. He's a medical doctor, Atlanta, Georgia. And you can reach out to me and I'll give you his information. And if you like this video, please share it, like it, and comment here on this site. And visit robertband.com for more useful blogs and free resources that help advance your business and your life. This is Robert Band, your business finance expert. I'm helping business owners make their accounting and finance problems go away. Remember, one tip could be worth millions, and profits today become fortunes tomorrow. So don't let profits slip through the cracks. Until next time, thank you. Bye-bye. Neil, if people that are watching want to find a lifestyle medicine practitioner, where would they go to know who's in their community that's doing this kind of medicine?
Good question. And you won't find too many people advertising certified in lifestyle medicine, because that's really sort of a new certification. But you will find people that are practicing lifestyle medicine. And I think a good resource would be to go online and look at the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And there's a listing there of physicians that are practicing lifestyle medicine in your area. That's a good place to start.
That's good. Great. Okay, well, thank you.
All right, let's stay in touch.